Step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. Step 12 is the only step that doesn't say we either need to experience something or have some work to do. Step 12 is where it's delivered back to us. And as Jack was saying, that as his mentor told him, and he relayed to us, is that there always has to be an ending before there can be a new beginning. When I came into this room, I didn't know that over the next 12 weeks, or this is what I thought. I'm going to come in and do a series of teaching. I do this kind of stuff on a fairly regular basis. I've never done a series exactly quite like this. And I made the decision early on that I was going to take some of my work out of the book, because we're using the book in the series. But the handouts would always be fresh. I'd work on them every week. And so on Tuesday, I would actually start working on them. And then by Wednesday or Thursday, have them done, email them off to Karen or Jack, and boom, we're in business. I didn't know that you folks were leading me in a 12-step journey myself. Now, I've been doing 12 steps for about 18 years. But I was reminded once again that to whatever degree I put myself into these exercises and I put myself into this pathway, I am changed. For the last 5 or 6 years, I've been in what some of our great spiritual fathers would call a dark night of the soul. And I've struggled for 5 or 6 years. I've mentioned it before. I kind of mentioned this casually. I tend to be somewhat prone to depression, so I try to be proactive. I try to eat right. Yeah, doesn't look like it, but I try to eat right. I get my exercise. I sleep well. And yet still I struggle. But through this last 3 months of working with you folks, I realized that God is taking me out of that dark night of the soul season in my life. And it's helped me understand that part of the dark night of the soul for me, because I was hanging on to the life that I had lived for so long, which meant that I was unwittingly resisting the life that God had for me in the future. And as we did this journey together, I found myself being a little bit more open, a little bit more aware, and a little more willing to surrender. By the way, on your handout here, I've entitled it "Living Life Forward." And I think when I think about the idea of spiritual awakening, for me, it's not exactly been like this. Suddenly I want to go rah, rah for Jesus. It's more that I'm just aware of a presence that lives inside of me in a place deeper than I even know how to explain. And this presence communicates a stability to me, a reasonableness to me, a perspective given to me that's much greater than the sum of my years. It's an awareness that helps me realize that I don't have to evaluate myself. I don't have to judge myself, because I'm very prone to do that. I'm very prone to look at you and I go, gosh, why aren't I like that? How come I'm not more successful here? How come I'm such a screw up there? You know what? To whatever degree I'm a success or to whatever degree I'm a failure, it just is what it is. I don't have to make it a judgment about it. I don't have to go through life like an appraiser judging everything that I do. And yet at the same time, it's a calling to gut-wrenching honesty. For me to see myself with no rose-colored glasses, without the necessity to minimize my shortfalls or to exaggerate my successes. Spiritual awakening has helped me to understand what I want. Or maybe I should say, what do I want more? You know, I'm 18 years clean and sober, and just last week I had a using dream. Those of you who are drug and alcohol or alcoholics and drug addicts, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Where you just laying in bed at night, minding your own business, getting your 8 hours, and then suddenly your dreams take you down memory lane. And using dreams are some of the most colorful, vivid, real-life dreams where you wake up and you don't exactly know where you are. And you don't even know whether or not you're really still sober. And you kind of have to wake up and shake yourself and go, oh my gosh, I'm in my own bed. Oh, wow. Whew. Oh, thank God I'm at home. Oh, I had one of those last week. And I started having those early in sobriety, and they tortured me. I would wake up just drenched in sweat, so afraid. Now I've come to terms with the fact that, you know what, they just happen. They're really part of the brain healing itself. And here's the best part, is they give me an opportunity to go back and visit my previous choices and my lifestyle that I used to live and allow me to answer the question, what do I want more? Because I've never forgotten how much I enjoyed heroin. I've never forgotten how much I enjoyed cocaine. I'm not sure which one I enjoyed the most. But today, I want more to be right here with you. Wow. Now, you know what? That's really kind of what I wanted all along. Not necessarily to be standing up here, but I wanted to be with people who I could tell something truthful about myself and they would appreciate that. Which leads us to this part of, we try to carry the message. In your handout, I reference, oh, I don't, do I? Or maybe I do. One of my favorite authors is a guy named Frederick Buechner. He has a quote, "The story of any one of us is in some measure the story of all of us." As I've sat or stood up here week after week for the last 12 weeks, I've been watching you. I've been keenly looking around at your faces, and I've noticed a few things. One is week number 1, we had the addicts and the alcoholics over here, and we had all the Al-Anoners and the codependents over here. And the first time I walked up here, I felt a little bit like it was the Hatfields and the McCoys. And I didn't know whether to call in the National Guard or just run for my life. I didn't know when either a fist fight or a food fight might break out. And then you guys started to talk. And really the readers became the stars. Did you notice that? Now I really like that because it kind of helped me kind of dissolve a little bit, which I like that. It makes me feel a little bit more comfortable. And then we all witnessed here. A man stood up over here, just spontaneously, boom, stood up and told us all about his struggle with pornography. And he said it louder than I'm talking to you right now. And he just let it out because he was sick of it. And I looked at him and I was astounded at the courage born out of his desperation. And you know who was the big winner that night? Every one of us. I healed a little bit And so did you because of that man. Yeah. See, so when you walk into your groups and you tell the truth about your life, those who are listening, really listening, not to respond, not to assess, not to evaluate, but those who are really listening and allowing you to tell your truth like it's an unfolding of a landscape. I ride motorcycles for a hobby. And last year, actually the last 2 summers, I've ridden from here over to Colorado, and I just love riding down the highways there and just soaking it all in. I mean, there's too much to really try to figure out. I'm just trying to absorb as much of it as I can. That's what we do when we listen. And it's from hearing what they have to say that you will find more of yourself. And when you listen to them, you will hear their courage and their tenacity and their desire to be whole, and you can hear them beginning to choose what they want more. And that's what you have to offer to someone else when you share. Don't prejudge your share. If they don't like what you have to say, then they have a lot more serious problems than you do. We try to practice these principles in all our affairs. When I started this process, I started doing 12 steps because I wanted to make a good impression on my counselor, because my counselor was reporting to the judge, and I was trying to stay out of jail, and I was in this rehab program that, if I did good, I had a chance of not going to jail. So, my goodness, I was going to do this better than anyone else had ever done it. And then after I started doing a little bit in the 12 steps, I started thinking, if I work really hard at this, I could learn how to smoke crack like a gentleman. Yeah. I figured I could 12-step myself back into sanity and regain some control over cocaine. Yeah. It made total sense to me. So I worked my ass off. Sorry about that. You can bleep that later. The problem is the harder I worked these steps, the more I came to terms with the fact that I was fundamentally a drug addict. And even worse, that I was an alcoholic, which means I couldn't go home and substitute a six-pack every night to make myself feel a little bit better. And then later on, I came to terms with the fact that really my first addiction after my codependency was my porn addiction, which started when I was a little boy. Looked at my dad's porn. Like most porn addicts, that's how it starts. It took me 7 years to quit smoking cigarettes. 7 years of, today's the day, no more. Go run 5 miles. Then off to the 7-Eleven to get a pack on the way home from running. Because I threw the pack away from yesterday. The pack I bought yesterday, I'd thrown that one away. Every time I have visited these steps, I have been changed, and in ways that really were not of my own agenda. But in every way, it has been better for me than I could have designed for myself. So that's it. Step 12 is not about doing anything. It's about being what you have become during the first 11 steps. And at the same time, coming to terms with the fact that the journey is not over. But if you've done 11 steps up to this point, you know that you are better. And that your life is better. And I never wanted to do what I do. what God has led me into here, this wasn't on my radar screen. You know what? I just wanted to be a contractor that made some good money and have a nice wife that liked me and a couple of nice kids and be kind of a cool guy in the neighborhood. None of that worked out. And I'm okay. That is a spiritual awakening for me.